is another barrier for access to capital. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing as we are trying to solve this problem. Next slide, please. So now let's start going into that whole concept of blended financing. So the basic concept with blended financing is trying to mobilize private funds, investor funds, and blend it with public funds so that we have a much larger pool of capital that is going to be used to solve this problem. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. So the thing with private funds is their goal is typically return on investment. The thing with public fund is the goal is typically of a social nature. We want to provide a social service to residents. And so they don't always mix. You know, the investor says, you know, I'm not here as a charity, as one of the investors says yesterday, I'm here to make money. So you have to figure out the right way to blend the two. And blended financing is actually very ingenious because it says, you know, why don't we both come together? You, the government, or you, the public source of funding, take care of a portion of the cost. Typically, we call it the first dollar is the most risky dollar, you know. So let's say you were in, let's use a private business. Let's assume any one of you wanted to start an enterprise. So you have a very wealthy uncle or somebody you want to propose to, so you go to them and say, you know, I have this great idea, I want to start this business, and all of my friends have said this business makes money, I've heard of people that have made money from it, so can you loan me or dash me X amount? So of course the person will say, how much due diligence have you done? You know, how much experience do you have in running this business? Because if I was to loan you money for something you have no experience about, you've not done your homework, etc., we're most likely not going to be successful. So the concept of blended financing is really where you now take the public funds to bridge that gap and basically de-risk the project, try to make sure you do all your feasibility, all your assessments, make sure
what they are doing. Is there a woman in the execution phase? Is there a woman trying to tell you that this design you are putting here, did you consider the disabled people? Did you consider, you know, that's water and sanitation before I saw my madam here. You know, did you consider all these things before you now make your decision? And that also comes to leadership. Do we have women in governance? Do we have women in this leadership position, these specific strategic leadership positions where they can make this decision and finally say, okay, for this to thrive or for it to pass or for it to be approved, we must have a certain percentage of women in that particular niche or cliche. You understand? In that particular office organization to make this pass. It's just about policy. When we put the policy, you find out that it's running, and it will be running without hitch. And the last speaker was talking about strategic development financing. And I'm sure they wouldn't have, because Oga is here, the designer. I'm sure but if we had listened to the end, we'll still notice that there is something about female, or rather, gender responsive financing being addressed. What are the importance of gender responsive financing? It addresses health and hygiene disparities. I just said it earlier. If you put all those things in perspective, definitely it will also enhance educational opportunities for girls. If you do not train our women, how do we even know how to do the policy? If we are not trained, how do we know how to put the design in place, right? Increasing economic participation of women, empowering women as decision makers, I've talked about that. Promoting social equity, I mentioned it as when I was defining earlier. Then compliance with international commitment. When we are able to put this together, there is no way the SDG goals, if you are looking for grant, if the gender part of it is not included, it cannot see the light of the day. That's the truth. So we have to come together to make this work. The next slide. The key elements of gender-responsive financing. Sorry, I came with bullet points so that my panelists would have the time. So we have the gender analysis, which is conducting assessment to understand the gender-specific needs. I mentioned it in a way, and also utilizing gender disaggregated data. It is the gender disaggregated data that will help you plan. Without it, you won't be able to. Inclusive budgeting, mentioned, allocating specific funds for gender-specific needs. Allocating specific funds for gender-specific needs. Today, how much is menstrual pad? And men, you are here, you have wives, you have daughters, so please be free. Menstrual pad, 1,000 plus. And we have children in schools, secondary schools, that sometimes in a month, they cannot go to school. 5 days in a month, they can't go to school because they cannot afford it. They use towels. And they have to wait, wash, and all those things. And remember, it's not hygienic. How much is IBS donating? Yes, sir. How much are you donating to menstrual hygiene fund? As if anywhere you see women, you say, okay, I'm donating this. I know they are there in America. They do a lot of initiative regards to that. Thanks to Engineer Linda, she has an initiative every month, once in a while. We just go around to donate pads to secondary schools. So please, if offices can make it as a policy now, that so amount, 0.01% of our budget in a year, we dedicate it to this. You take it to the secondary schools. We have so many places you can. If you don't have, maybe you talk to me, I'll tell you where to donate it to. Please, let's reach out. These are the little things we, the women, can see and the men cannot see. And that is why we are saying, involve the women to open your eyes a bit so that it will be more effective. Then also involving women in budgeting processes, capacity building, training stakeholders on gender-responsive planning and budgeting, empowering women with management and technical skills. By the time we finish planning, budget, now we want to execute. The women are still there in a way. What about the management? Who manages it? It's still the women. In a way, it's still the women. So they need to be empowered to manage all the facilities and also have the technical skills. We're talking about Clean Nigerian campaign. We were in the steering committee just 2 days ago. And a lot of things were coming up. Basically, I went to represent the organization. But I now found out that everything they've been talking about over the years, I think from 2020, 2021 up until now, has been federal, state, and local government. I was sharing with Engineer Linda when we were coming. I said, it didn't make sense to me because everything is federal. But then, look at the pyramid, it's like this. But why don't you turn the pyramid this way and concentrate on the local government, who actually are the ones reaching the grassroots? Then they bring out their reports and everything. It goes to the state. Then by the time it gets to the federal, you're only having one sheet of paper of reports, not the other way around. But when it comes to financing, it should be this way. But if it comes to execution, you turn the pyramid. And I'm glad they took it. I just saw their draft when they sent it. So that's why if I didn't have that knowledge, and if I was not in that meeting, I won't be able to make my voice heard. So please allow our women, give them opportunity to advise where it arises. Participatory approaches. You have to engage women and men equally in project planning and implementations. You can see they are all interlinked, kind of. Creating platforms for women's participation in decision-making and governance. Spoken about decision-making, but this time around governance. We should allow women. Monitoring and evaluation. In monitoring and evaluation, most of us believe monitoring is actually after the project. Monitoring is during the project and post project. So we should have the skills, I talked about capacity building, have the skills to be able to carry out this monitoring and evaluation, conducting regular gender impact assessments pre, during, and post. Strategies for implementing gender-responsive financing. Where's my barrister, Engineer Barrister Kemefuna? He works on things like that. And I'm glad to introduce to you somebody that, an engineer I respect so much, formulated the WASH policy for Lagos State, Engineer Soji. Can we have, don't worry, we'll soon come and tell them what you did here. So formulating gender-inclusive water and sanitation policies so that it can see the light of the day. Ensuring support for gender-responsive budgeting at all levels. I mentioned those categories. And the second one is dedicated funding mechanisms. Our guy here was talking about blended financing. And I'm glad he mentioned it. And that's why he came here all the way. So in blended financing is one of the strategies that we can, follow through to help gender-responsive financing. Please, I believe so much because you're talking about the philanthropists, you're also talking about the public, and you're talking about the private partnership coming together. And of course, if you listen, it's business. So they are not bringing their money for you for charity, but they are bringing it for value. So you take your own, they take their own. Encouraging public and private sector investments. Partnership and collaboration is one of the strategies. I'm glad that the SDG 17 is all about what? Partnership, collaboration. LIWAC will not see the light of the day if there was no partnership, if there was no collaboration. One man cannot pull this, but you can see a lot of sponsors and partners, and you and I trying to make it happen, and it has happened. Partnership and collaboration with NGOs, international organizations, and the private sector. Building multi-stakeholders partnership. Part of the Clean Nigerian campaign as well, we found what was lacking was the coordination of these stakeholders. Lack of coordination, and I'm sure they recorded that and they're taking it to the vice president for their meeting next month, basically. Then capacity building is repeating itself, advocacy and awareness. Clean Nigerian campaign, sorry I'm mentioning this because it's just the latest thing that meeting I went, so I was just seeing some things. They gave their report, and in that meeting, it was more of is it STGs they do and all those things. They do certification, awareness, advocacy, but most of them we are doing more of certification. And I asked a question. When you certify, what next at the state level? They are doing this, but everybody wants that certification so that it will be said that they have done their job and you will now come and declare ODF. It's not done. Awareness. So much has to be done into awareness. But I don't want to digress. Let it not be as if I'm digressing from my financing, funding sources and mechanisms. Government funding, international aid and grants, leveraging on international development, aids like what UNICEF is doing for us, WHO and all that, water aid and the rest. We also have the PPP engagement, engaging the private sector, community-based financing. In this community-based financing, I like it so much because you own the project, whereby community come together, even NGOs can come or donor agencies say, we want to do this, and they engage the community from the inception to execution. They own the project, they have lists, maybe Engineer Linda will say a project she handled that had to do with community-based funding. They will own this project like theirs. In fact, not like it is theirs, because they tell you, we want this water here. As a donor agency, I can come do all my feasibility studies and say, okay, this is where we want it, this is where we want it. But then the community will say, this is where I want it, I don't want it this place. So you have to listen to them, and that's why we have that stakeholders engagement. And when that is done, definitely the project will be sustainable because they will be able to maintain, operate, and manage the project. Crowdfunding from diaspora. This was in a meeting yesterday. I listened, and the lady mentioned that, I think she came from Sierra Leone, Liberia, it was here, that they look at crowdfunding, letting their people, and this also is like community-based, because I cannot come from Lagos State and I'm doing community-based project for somebody from Imo State. Are you getting it? So it is people from my own local government, from my own area, that I will let know. So we need this, we need that. Of course, they always have these little associations over there in diaspora. Once they buy in, you let them buy into that project, it will see the light of the day. The next thing you'll be talking about is the management. So once they see your management plan or your operational plan, definitely you'll be able to get the funding that you desire. You have the blended financing that Oga has talked about, Water Infrastructure Development Fund. This was said yesterday, whereby let there be a policy that every project should at least release 1.5% of its allocation and gear it towards Water Infrastructure Development Fund. And by the time that kind of money comes, it will be easier to give allocation to the states. And I thought about this when I was developing. Women supporting women. We're talking about funding, financing. Of course, the financial institutions are not left out. These are about the 7 women, top CEOs of various banks. And when women support each other, incredible things does what? Happen. So we need to reach out to them. They may not know. But if we close our lips, there is no way we'll be getting funding. Challenges and solutions in gender-responsive financing. One of the challenges is beyond this, though. So I just brought these few out. Lack of gender disaggregated data, mentioned earlier. Cultural and social barriers. Funding gaps. That's limited financial resources dedicated to gender-responsive initiatives. Institutional resistance. Of course, tussle in the office. Why should it be? Why are we even having it? Somebody asked, who was it? Why are you people always talking about gender? Anybody, but they didn't get it. And that's why I'm so happy. My heart goes to all the guys here. Please clap for yourselves. Lack of coordination. Then solutions. I'm glad when we come here, we hear solutions. So that keeps us on our toes. And like Mr. Shonwolu said, he wants to see results in 12 to 18 months. And I'm sure before 12 to 18 months, there will definitely be results in Lagos State. Improving data collection. We have to work so hard to improve data. We are getting data, no doubt. But is it coordinated? That's where the coordination wahala comes in. So capacity building and training, advocacy and policy change, innovative financing, he also talked about that, system strengthening of water infrastructure framework, and of course, engaging the private sector partnership. These are ways women can contribute, just more or less summarizing what I had said earlier. In summary, gender-responsive financing for WASH in Lagos State is crucial for WASH access for all citizens. It can promote development by addressing gender disparities in access to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. Gender-responsive financing for WASH can lead to improved health outcomes, enhanced educational opportunities, economic empowerment of women, and overall resilience of environmental and climate changes, contributing to sustainable development and inclusive growth of the nation or the state. All stakeholders must be involved, like the donor agencies, NGOs, etc. Let's build Lagos together, and at large, let's build Nigeria. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Please, a bigger round of applause to our presenter. Engineer Chinyere Igwegbe, we are grateful for this wonderful presentation that she just made. And like she mentioned, she's so excited to have the gentlemen in the house. Mostly when it comes to gender issues, a lot of times we feel it's all ladies' affairs. But the truth is that gender responsiveness in any aspect or any facet of life has a joint, it has to be a joint effort. And we know that water and sanitation projects that takes gender consideration into it plays a significant role in improving the health, education, well-being of girls and women. And not only that, when it comes to that of water specifically, it helps us, especially the women and the girls, in ensuring that these girls and women are empowered to give in their best in the place of work, in the place of policy making, in the place of decision making, and all areas. So, gender responsive water and sanitation projects can promote economic empowerment and allow these girls and women to contribute to meaningful development. Thank you very much again, Madam Presenter. She has talked about how quite a number of development agencies and multinational development banks, as well as donor agencies, have made great commitments to finance and support infrastructure or water projects that incorporates gender considerations. I think I was having a conversation with one of our panelists, and I was told of a project that was thrown out because it didn't have gender components. And so many countries have gone a long way in doing so many things and putting up so many strategies. Uganda, for example, has got the water and sanitation gender strategy. I'm looking forward to seeing the gender strategy for Nigeria being developed. We have the experts here. I think that's actually a document on its own, even though we are trying to mainstream it into other policies. But this is quite on its own. Then the African Development Bank project, Asian development banks also have got these gender action plans, for development projects. And I'm sure most of us that are working with donor agencies, especially from the multinational development banks, have seen this component that is very, very key. So we have some team of experts to discuss with us this very topic. And without wasting time, I would like to start in no particular order to invite to the podium Dr. Mrs. Oreoluwa Fini. She is a special advisor to Lagos State Government on Sustainable Development Goals. Please put our hands together for these very distinguished personalities we have here. Next to her, we have Engineer Mrs. Omolanke Helen Taiwo, the Executive Director, Operations, Lagos State Water Corporation. Please, a round of applause for her. We also have here with us Miss Yemisi Ransom Kuti. I really, really do admire her. Please, a round of applause for her, a great entrepreneur, a leader, the founder of the Nigerian network of NGOs and that of the Girl Watch. Thank you very much, ma'am. We also have a policy strategist and expert with us here, and is also an expert in engineering consultancy. A man, so it's not all about women. Okay, so please, let's put our hands together for the powerful man among women. Blessed are thou among women. Engineer Adesoji Ade, please, can you come forward? Thank you. We also have a very renowned doctor among us, Dr. Folayinka Dania, Chief Resilience Officer, Lagos State, and the CEO of the Lagos State Resilience Office. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. I learned somebody is representing Mrs. George. Do I have the representative in the house? Okay, all right. I'm sorry, the name, I can call it Olua Soromi Dayo George. Said somebody was representing her, but Okay, beautiful. So thank you very much, my very distinguished panelists. I'm so glad and honored to have you all here today to discuss this very, very important topic. And I would start, first of all, by talking to Madam SDG. Yes, Madam SDG, thank you very much. I want you to just start us up. We are all aware that we need to align with global frameworks, like the presenter said, especially talking about the last SDG. So we need to align, by aligning with the global frameworks, such as the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG. Which one concerns water and sanitation now, people? SDG?
6.
Thank you. But then we are in gender. So SDG what?
5.
Okay. Madam, I didn't want you to answer it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so we have 2 very powerful SDG goals that are being embedded in this very theme today. So with respect to that and aligning this conversation in that direction, what role do gender considerations play in achieving these sustainable development goals for water and sanitation?
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I know that the previous speaker was hoping that we'll not be in the room, but we're in the room, and we're in every room. My name is Dr. Orefini, and I'm the special advisor to Mr. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on Sustainable Development Goals. Sounds like a fancy word, but it's 3 things. It's people, you and I, seated in this room. It's the planet, our environment, which is what we're about to talk about, and it's prosperity, meaning the economic outlook of each and every person seated here. Sustainable development goals are personal. Everybody has a role to play. It's not a fancy word. It's not something that that is not tangible. They're practical things that everybody has a role to play in. We're now in the decade of action, and what that simply means is that when these goals were set in 2015, we gave ourselves 15 years to achieve them. And according to my math, we probably have 6 more years to achieve the goals. There are 17 goals in total, but like I had mentioned before, all the 17 speak to just 3 things: people, planet, prosperity. We're seated here today to address 2 main goals, 5 and 6. 5 talking about what? And 6 talking about water and sanitation. And also, always in everything we do, goal 17. Because nobody can go it alone. The government cannot achieve the SDGs alone. The people cannot do it alone, neither can organizations, or even, no matter how well funded the NGO is, it must be done together. Together we win, and SDG 17 is partnership for the goals. Now, I'm happy I got to listen to a few of the sessions this morning, and there was a question you asked, engineer, which I think I can answer before then moving on to the meat of the matter. For us in Lagos State, gender has always been very important, extremely important. In everything we do, there is a gender component, and that came forward with Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's Themes Plus agenda. Themes Plus, the plus is gender equality and inclusion. The inclusion for those living with disabilities. So it means that in whatever you're planning, whatever policy you are formulating, you must carry everybody along. And we don't just speak, because this is also a country with policies for everything. But when it comes sometimes to execution, we may not be as strong. But for us, we talk and do in Lagos. 50% of the permanent secretaries, and for everybody here, you know what a permanent secretary is the top line of the civil service. And the civil service is what drives the state. 50% are women. Half of the civil service, half of the permanent secretaries. And we now move further. The state executive, the final decision-making body of this state, 30% women. I'm seated here as Special Advisor Sustainable Development Goals. Dr. Dania is the Chief Resilience Officer. The Executive Secretary of this program is a woman. And it's not women for women's sake. The women themselves have to prove that they can do it. So give us the platform, like you said, engineer, and give us the room and watch us perform. Good. So I hope I've addressed that question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've addressed that question.
That question. Now to today's question, and I'll make it brief so that we can move on. For women and water and sanitation, especially concerning gender equality, it is clear, and UNICEF has the data that women spend 200 million hours every day, every single day, not a month, not a year, fetching water. Fetching water. In most households, domestic activities include the sourcing and provision of water, and it usually falls to women and girls. And what that does, in essence, is that it reduces the opportunities for women to do other things, be it their education, or learning a craft, or going into a vocation. They spend so much time sourcing water that it reduces their ability to even contribute to the economic empowerment of the family. So that is one. The second thing, very briefly as well, is on the health challenge. If water is contaminated, who is going to get ill first? The person that went to fetch it. So there's also a health angle to it, where women are exposed sometimes to contaminated water and also fall ill first because they're the first ones to encounter it. Therefore, it is very important, and it is of utmost importance, that in making sure that there's enough water, both in Lagos and planetary, worldwide, that the gender skew is put very much in front. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that wonderful contribution. Now, before we go into integrating gender perspective or gender responsiveness into policy making, I would want the powerful man amidst us to throw more light on the importance or the benefits of, this very integration we're talking about. What is the benefit? I know Madam has already talked about it. Now it's just to lay the foundation for you, because I would want you to buttress more on the benefit in line with integrating it into policies, since we know that gender-sensitive policies in wash financing ensures that women's right and access to water and sanitation is being protected, since it boosts the overall productivity of the sector. How can we, that's after you've mentioned the benefits, sir, then you tell us how this gender mainstreaming in wash policies can actually be designed such that it can meet the specific gender needs of women and girls.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I've been introduced already. When we use the word gender inclusiveness, there's always this perception that the inclusiveness is like an afterthought, And just like, I just want to tease that my inclusion in this panel is an afterthought. So yeah, that is exactly the same approach that we use, when it comes to gender inclusiveness. And I want to just share some of my practical experiences working with UNICEF and the EU and the World Bank over the last 20 years, especially in northern Nigeria. Because when we talk of gender inclusiveness here, we don't really appreciate it as much because, like she said, 50% of the women are in the civil service. Most of the women here are educated and things like that. But in northern Nigeria, it's a completely different story, and that you need to take into consideration when you are developing your policy, I worked in Kano State on the policy implementation guidelines, and this same policy document talked about the theory, gender inclusiveness, there must be this percentage, blah, 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 blah. It now came into the point of implementation. Guess what? In forming a washcom now, you want to form the washcom to have the men and the women, but how do they sit together to have meetings? It's not possible. You see, it's not possible. So I was now faced with that dilemma that, okay, how do I come up with an implementation guideline that will be able to ensure that inclusiveness comes in? And that's where you do a lot of, thought. You put a lot of, that's why I'm saying that, when you're talking about developing policies, it's not just the policy statement. You must really think through the strategy. So how did I come about getting this thing through? We now came up with a plan that the washcom was made up of water issues and sanitation issues. So what we now did there was that we made sure that the men in the washcom handled the water issues while the females handled the sanitation issues. Then we now had to make a special request that maybe once a week or once a month, the head of the men and the head of the women, we meet like once a month to be able to come together. And so that's exactly how we came to solve the problem. So, it just shows that when we are thinking of, developing policies, So same also with Lagos State. In the Lagos State policy, it just says that at least 35% of women must be involved, in all gender-related WASH interventions. And that starts from the grassroots, not just the washcoms. You have to, step it up to the role of leadership. And I'm, even glad to say that the largest water service provider, possibly in Nigeria today, in Lagos, is being headed by a female. Just to buttress, how important it is. And you see, when you are traveling around Nigeria, especially northern Nigeria again, and you see the women trek, very, very long distances and everything, you then realize that gender inclusivity should not just be something that you just throw into any policy document. It's supposed to actually be the bedrock, how are women empowered? And the interesting thing about it is that when the woman is empowered, they tend to benefit the men at the end of the day. I can imagine my wife going to fetch water 3 kilometers. In the evening, how will she do in the other room? It will be, you see, we don't think, we don't think things, I'm talking from a man's perspective, and I need to talk to the men in the house. We don't think things through. We always think about our own immediate issues. But when we really, and I believe because, I'm also open to say that many times women are actually much smarter than us. And I think it's the fear.
I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause, ladies.
I think it's the fear sometimes that if you give them too much chance, they will chance you. I want us to have a very nice open house this morning, and so, moving forward, I think it's just very important for us, as a people, to recognize that, women actually have a very, very, very important role to play in WASH. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gender inclusivity is the bedrock. Gender responsiveness to the SDG goals. We've talked about incorporating it into policies. And we've seen examples. He has shared real-time examples. Now, engagement. Allow me to come to you, madam. Thank you so much. Now, within your outstanding, because I happened to go through her profile, and I was so amazed, let me digress a bit, that she was, can I say incarcerated on her way to Beijing conference because of her resilience and her outspokenness in terms of bringing in democracy and gender, women inclusion. During the, did ask her yesterday when we met. So, and the founder of so many organizations and networks, how can civil society organizations support gender responsiveness, especially in terms of financing water and sanitation projects?
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. For praising me, I have to say thank you, Abby. And Sheikh Ukwo. Let me just start by saying that I want to refer to something that Chinri said earlier on about men are the leader, the head, they're the leaders. I'm 77 years old this year, and I have 2 boys and 2 men and 2 women. You know, they've got children of their own. And I think it's important going forward because we have a lot of challenges with this back and forth. Who's the head, who's the tail, which side of the brain you do, who they for, who's holding neck, head, you know. And going forward, I think we should know that partnership is the bedrock of marriage. That is, all this partnership we're talking about and collaboration, that is where it is embedded. And in some areas of your marriage, your wife will be leading. In some areas, the man will be leading. In some areas, the children, in fact, for many years, the children are leading you all over the place, you know. So we really have to adopt that as our philosophy of life as Nigerians, whether we're from East, West, or South, and begin to partner and respect each other, and not see leadership as some controlling something that looks down at people. You know, in fact, me, I run away from leadership because when you lead, you are the chief servant. You are the one that everybody climbs up and demands everything from. So partnership must be the watchword for all of us going forward. Yes, Beijing, I was interrogated by SSS, and we fought for the military, against the military for democracy. We were tear-gassed. So my generation has a lot of expectations from you to step up and do the next thing, make it work for everybody, not just for a few. Going to your question, how civil society can support gender-responsive financing. I think the most important thing is to look at it as a holistic issue. Because when you are looking for financing, what you must have is the business case for improving water supply. You know, and that improvement is going to benefit the women, is going to benefit the men, is going to benefit the citizens, is going to benefit businesses and productivity in the nation. So that's what you've got to pay attention to. Because when you are trying to borrow money from any entity, they're going to look at that bottom line. What are the numbers? And what's coming back to as a return on that investment? And we've talked a lot about partnership. Melissa Jones said yesterday, the power of partnership, inclusiveness, stakeholder engagement, and communication with citizens. So partnership is not just, you know, thinking about it. It's about concrete steps to make sure that you're communicating with each other, you're engaging with each other, and in this case, you have to ensure that you engage particularly with women and vulnerable groups in communities. Now, CSOs bring a whole lot of expertise to the frame. They bring a lot of knowledge because a lot of them are doing work and research and partnering with World Bank and all kinds of institutions. They bring a lot of support in your endeavor to collect data, because they can go to these communities and get information that often people will not give to the public officers, because they think that when you come, you just want to tax them. So they will not give, they will just run away. But civil society can help in this manner. They can assist with waste disposal, because again, that affects women. I know a National Conservation Foundation does a lot of work on that. So those are the kind of CSOs we should be looking at partnering with. We should begin to promote the circular economy initiatives, because that way it alleviates the burden on women, because they don't have to continue to think of new things. They can look at the recycling of waste to wealth. There's a lot of benefits to women in what civil society and women can do. CSOs bring a lot of capacity building component to this sector, because they have the training. They have a lot of funding for training. They've been trained, so they can now go to the communities and create that enabling environment for businesses, which again is, as I said, is very important. That business case, the business case for CSO engagement is the same business case for the business sector. You would just pick, because all of them, what a non-profit is an organization that is not taking its profit and buying a Bugatti with the money. That's the only difference. They are also businesses. It's just that the money they make, they plow back into the business. They plow back into humanitarian activities. But they also have to work in a business-like fashion, otherwise they also go out of business. And then CSOs can also work with us in the security sector, because I think we miss the security element when we're talking about water and sanitation. In Lagos, for instance, the activities of area boys and agberos hamper the water and sanitation and various other activities in the sectors. They can bring infrastructure elements to the programs that we're doing. And I really think a state of emergency should be declared in the wash sector. And when we're developing our proposals and concepts, we must clearly demonstrate the impact, assessment criteria within our work. And the power of leadership and governance, setting the example for the populace. The public servants, you cannot go and talk to people about water and sanitation, cleanliness, and be looking dirty. We cannot come to Alausa or any of your officers and see that it is not clean. You have to set that example, and you have to establish systems within the government, at the government level, to ensure effective, efficient operations, and like I said, behavioral examples that the citizens can follow. And you have to ensure that government buildings aren't also erected on drainage systems. You yourself must, I have a personal example of a building in Onikon, Odeya Entertainment. Let me expose them. Let me put everything on out there. The Odeya car park in front of Yoruba Tennis Club. It's built on blocking the road. It's destroyed the road. It's going to cost them money to, and then Mr. Dosumu Wahab is going around putting red chalk on other people's buildings. So I think that self-example is really critical. Planning is very important. You have model city plans. The Lagos Island one was launched not so long ago, and we were at the stakeholder meeting. Now these plans, it's a fine example. You launch it. Now I didn't see any, and I talked to the PS afterwards. Okay, what else? I was excited. Oh, what's next? We're going to start doing this. And nothing. So what is the follow-up? When you have a model city plan, have you done the drawings for the drainage? Have you called the quantity surveyors to, the plan has to be holistic, in depth, in detail, so that anybody who wants to partner with you can just say, look, I can only do this bit or I can do more. And, it's clear to CSOs and private sector and CSR-oriented organizations.
All
Now,
right,
your financing.
Okay. We'll take that as the last one.
Okay.
Madam has so much to share with us, believe
Funding
me.
and financing. People are already paying for water. People are paying, either buying from the tanker or from those barrels going around. So people are ready to pay, the willingness to pay. And you can get it from, various sectors. I think the last speaker was going to talk about, and Chere too, talk about bonds and stuff like that, your development fund, But I think underlying all this is that culture of integrity and transparency, the discipline and ethical practices from the regulators, and the public sector generally. A safe and clean environment in offices, hospitals, schools, transparent auditing, disclosure of accounts, effective monitoring and evaluation processes, and the political stability. We don't want Governor Sowolu to say he wants this, and then another 4 years, another person comes and is disrupted.
Thank you very much.
I'll stop there.
Okay.
I can add more as
thank
as
you
we
so
go
much.
on.
It's just for want of time. If not, would love to hear all this. But most importantly, Madam Ransom Kuti has put it clear to us that we need capacity building. We need to have articulate plans. We need to have that transparency, elements of integrity. We need to be very deliberate, because the civil society groups will not get interested, and the funding partners will not get interested in your project, even if it's gender responsive, if you don't have these elements she has outlined for us. So it's very important for us to look at it critically in that respect. Now, before we go into capacity building, I would want us to talk a bit about what you call, sorry, I'm just trying to get, the strategies for gender responsive financing, which is quite important. We talked about the policies, we've talked about gender responsive budgeting, we've talked about establishing gender responsive projects, private sector investments, like Madam has talked about, engaging civil society groups. But one of it that is very important that she has also mentioned is that building of multi-stakeholder partnership and collaboration. And this, as it were, requires the lens, the very lens of resilience, bringing in the lens of resilience into water and sanitation financing. We need to make sure that there's commitment and it is being followed through to the implementation stage. Now I'm coming back to Madam on resilience. We call her Madam Resilience, Chief Resilience Officer, the Lagos State Resilience Office. Madam, what are some of the sustainable initiatives that can be introduced to ensure that women participate effectively and sustainably in water and sanitation and hygiene management as well? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that question. And there are many strategies, many.
Just mention some few.
I'm going to pick one because it's very, very important. We talked about inclusion, which is a great strategy. But now, beyond talking about it, we need to be intentional about it, because we're talking about how women can participate in this sector, and everybody has an idea. People are saying different things, and I'll mention some of them. Some are saying we need to bring about career pathways for women. We need to bring about incentives for them to want to participate in these activities. We're talking about ensuring that the men are involved. We're talking about awareness and advocacy. But I think the most important thing is inclusion of women in the conversation itself. We need to bring women on board, or we need to go to them. As in, stakeholder engagement is very important. It's not just calling women to a space and saying, oh, what do you think we need to do? We need to go to them, because there are differences across educational levels. There are differences across cultures. There are differences across states. And even within states, there are differences within communities. So women need to be part of that conversation around the planning, even for the initiatives that we want to implement to improve their participation in WASH. Those conversations need to happen. We need to break those barriers, as in to identify really what are the gaps, as in why are they not participating. So we need to understand the problem. We need to understand what are the gaps in things that we are doing now and things that we need to do. What incentives do they really, really need? Because it might not be money, and it might not be the husband that is saying do things this way. It might be the woman herself that has the idea around it. So even when we are planning the awareness campaigns or the educational campaigns, what's the message? How do we communicate this? Because you might think you're saying something, but you're not communicating. So you need, oh, thank you very much for that. You might think you're saying something, but you're not actually communicating. So the best person to design even those awareness and communication campaigns are the women themselves. And that's why we're saying we need to be extremely intentional about it. It's not something that we will get done in a day, a week, because what works in Surulere might not work in Ikorodu. And that is a state. What works in Lagos, as you mentioned, might not work in the north. What works in our local campaigns might not work in national campaigns. We now need to begin to bring even other people on board. Some people have done this before, so that's why I said intentional about inclusion. So that's where you have your partnerships, as in your civil society groups, the community leaders, as in who are the people that have done this before? What lessons can you share? As in, how do we do this better without necessarily reinventing the wheel? How do we divert the resources that we have that are limited into those spaces without wasting them? Inclusion might sound very simple, but everything about resilience, as in, lies in inclusion. So whether it's your effectiveness, as in how do we look at things that we've done today? How did we do them? What worked? How did we do them yesterday? What didn't work? Are we repeating the same thing again and again and expecting a different result? That's reflection. How do we plan in a robust manner that ensures that we understand what it is that we are intending to achieve? What are the failures that could happen? What are the plans we have in place for the failures when they happen? That's robust planning. Resourcefulness, understanding that the resources that we even need to do this inclusion might not necessarily lie in one sector. How do we maximize the resources that are available, whether human, material, financial? How do we ensure flexibility? Because you might think that there's one way you want to get it done, but that way might not work. What are the alternative strategies that we can use in place? How do we integrate the various sectors together? And so that's where your incentives, because when you're talking about inclusion, what are the different programs that you have? How do we link them up together? Because vertical programs don't work. We need to understand that. So even when we're talking about WASH, we cannot just be concentrating on WASH. It's how do we bring women into play, into the various sectors that we have. That's when we're talking about women inclusion. But if we're talking about gender responsiveness, in total, how do we bring the men? How do we bring let me not say that when we're in Nigeria. So, so how do we bring the men into the space, to actually understand and implement what it is that we want to do? What is the spare capacity that we're building? And that's redundancy, to ensure that if this plan does not work, or if this thing does not work, what are we falling back on? Because even if the women do not agree to participate, what is the next best thing? Because we need to bring them in one way or the other. And that's when you're talking about the various qualities of resilience. So even in picking one, you need to address all of it together. So that's why I'm saying one major strategy, even though it sounds like one, is a big one, is being intentional about inclusion.
Thank you
very much.
very much. You know, if we allow her, she begin to lecture us on resilience. Yes, thank you very much for that. One mega strategy of inclusion. And in that, we also have the gender, within the inclusion, we have the gender responsiveness from what she said. And that is why we have the men and the women alike to see how we can drive the inclusion of women in financing water and sanitation as well as their projects. Now, we're going to, I think this should be our wrapping up with capacity building. We've mentioned it in virtually every aspect of this conversation. The capacity of these women need to be built to be able to carry out these responsibilities and all that. Madam Tayo has actually worked so much on so many infrastructures as an engineer, and she's now managing being the executive director, operations for the Lagos Water Corporation. And you have had direct contact with people in the water and sanitation sector in terms of their functionalities and all that. Now, capacity is not just for the women, also for the men. But for this conversation, we will just see how, in terms of technical, financial, and leadership skills, how can this technical education or trainings be designed and tailored to encourage more women to venture into water and sanitation sector?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. We have spoken at large. Everybody has realized that capacity building is the in thing. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of an engineer. I'm going to talk about the technical training and what we need to do in terms of technical training. I will talk about technical training let's take it from the point of view that our students, our children, our girls, we need to take them from the cradle. And so I will say that training in WASH, we need to go back to curriculum activities in the school. We need to incorporate training from the grassroots, from the primary school, secondary school, teaching them about WASH, teaching them about water supply and sanitation, and also training the students in such a way that they will realize that gender responsiveness is the in thing, and also I'm sorry, let me just let me just get back to my notes and so that I won't speak out of my context. I'm sorry for taking our time. Okay. I will say that here I am. Incorporate gender-specific modules. I've talked about inclusion in the curriculum activity of the schools. And also, I will talk about scholarship and financial support. We need to encourage our girls in scholarship. We encourage them to, some people, they are not ordered there. So we need to just give them support in terms of specifically for women pursuing education in water and sanitation engineering in related fields. We need to encourage STEM education in our system, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We need to encourage them. We need to give them support that they need. And also, we need to give them mentorship and role models. as engineers, as people that are already there. And also I would say about practical training and internship. We need to encourage our girls' child in internship when they come to the industry. We need to encourage them. We need to take them through it and all that. I will say that there is these things that we are talking about, it has already been taking place. We are already doing them. We have association. We have some associations that are already taking care of this type of thing, because when we were young, going into MEM field is like a taboo. But nowadays, girl child, they go into STEM, they study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And also, I want to say the effort of this association. One of the associations we belong to is the Association of Professional Women Engineers of Nigeria. And these are the activities that have been taking place all around. I happen to belong to Lagos chapter, and in this chapter, we go to schools, catch them young, we speak about capacity building, we speak about encouraging students, why and how they should take into science-oriented course and all that. And also there are plans, grants, scholarships. Some people give them scholarship, encouraging them to study, and also we have mentorship. We mentor most of these children, we talk to them, and capacity building also, like the one that we are doing as we go home, our children, our students, our girls, let's encourage them to come into STEM. And so these are the things I would say that we can do as capacity building, stakeholders engagement, talking to them, having workshops like this, talking to students, taking them by as young as they are, both primary school. I was happy one day that I was at the conference of the August 30 this year, celebrating menstrual hygiene day, and the boys and the girls, they were there together, and we were taking them together. We encouraged them, we gave them everything. Pads were distributed, and the boys were speaking about menstrual. You will love to hear them speaking, trying to tell us how they will encourage their sisters when they are menstruating and all that. So these are the things that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You see, some of the issues coming up from what Madam have just discussed is the inclusion of the next generation in planning. So we don't just plan for them, we plan with them. And I think thank God Madam just stepped in. I think probably maybe the next LIWAC, we should be having a section for the students, for them to bring in their ingenuity. They have various innovative ideas concerning water and sanitation because they are the future. And when we are talking about sustainable designs and implementation of policies, it should be with them, not for them. So we should have one of the breakout sessions and have them involved in this conference so that we will have a generation to hand over this conversation in this hall. Thank you very much, everyone. Before we leave, in one minute, just a minute, so I have just 5 minutes here. Madam, you're going to, in your X handle, I saw you say something about education. There's no perception of education, meaning education is education and clear for everyone. In 1 minute, we want you to lend your voice on this importance of education, on gender-responsive financing. 1 minute, madam. Thank you.
So my 1 minute goes this. Educate a woman. Educate a woman. Kojubelo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now to you, madam. We know that women face challenges. In 1 minute, how can we overcome? I know we can't overcome it in 1 minute, but just say something about overcoming these challenges that women, professional women face in the wash sector. Just in 1 minute.
Just in one word, I would say, build resilience and be able to overcome the challenges. Be up to the task, always doing your work at the right time, be able to deliver at the right time. So build resilience against any challenges in wash sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Kuti, you are an advocate of voices matching actions. How can advocacy and public awareness, play a vital role in promoting gender equality. In 1 minute, thank you, ma'am.
Benny. Have you all watched Funlayo and Sonkuti? So, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, in 1 minute, campaigns advocacy is so critical because all the grammar has to end up on the streets where you are communicating with people. And I would like to advise that we launch a safe and clean Lagos, a safe and clean environment campaign for Lagos, because safety and cleanliness is certainly interlinked. And with that, we can, where's Chinyere? We can piggyback on the National Clean campaign. But a safe and clean campaign Lagos is critical. We make it exciting. We have competitions. We have young people coming in doing artwork, social media. Let's all begin to jive. We call Made, we go dance with it.
We take it to the streets.
Take it to the streets.
Take it to the streets.
Make it fun. Make sure everybody's talking about it. Burna Boy, all of them, Davido. Let's get them all involved.
Thank you, ma. Yes. Thank you. We are going to make it fun. Thank you so much, sir. Your final word on gender-inclusive policies. Thank you.
All right. I have my own 1 minute.
Yes, your 1 minute.
Yeah, there was something I forgot to share that would interest you, based on my experience in Kano. When I got in there, the head of the Ministry of Women Development was a guy. So he now tells me, he says, why would UNICEF send a guy to come and talk about issues of women? I said, well, I don't know why, but I also wonder why Kano will make a guy the head of the female development. So, and the fight started. Anyway, so also during the presentation, when we made the presentation to all the commissioners and the deputy governor, there was not a single female there. And that law was going to be dead in the water. But for some reason, I do not know why, I made a very, very passionate plea to them that day to allow that law to pass. And I appealed to their conscience, and the deputy governor at that time approved that law. Whether that law is being implemented is a different matter, but at least it was approved. So I'm just trying to highlight the importance of having the women in the policy decision-making process.
Thank you, sir. We are grateful. Madam, cap it up with resilience. Just tell us something on that as we wrap up. Thank you. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. So from a resilience perspective, let's go back to reflectiveness. We can't keep doing things the same way and expecting a different result. We need to do something about this, and it is important that we bring in our women into the entire WASH value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. We have come to the end of this session. I want to leave us with this. What can we do to trigger this value chain, this chain reaction towards gender responsiveness in financing water and sanitation? From all this conversation, we identified the different needs and impacts of water and sanitation on men and women. We allocate funds to address such. We empower the women with the skills to manage and sustain this project. We engage the men and the women equally in decision-making processes. And with that, and many more, I think we can be able to have a gender-responsive... Okay, sorry, please, can you permit, just from the audience, please, he's been raising his hand and they are men, so please, let's not say no to them. Are we permitted? Thank you very much. Please, just the two of them.
Yes. Thank you very much. For me, when I came here, I did not know why I was here. But by the time the whole thing started, I really enjoyed it. And so for me, I'm in water, and I want to talk about water. When I was growing up,
Just briefly, sir.
Okay. So briefly, we saw that water is crucial at home. From my upbringing, if I don't have light, water must be available. But We see people buy water up and down, they run up and down. We are providing a solution whereby women will not be running up and down to get water. In their house, they will access drinking healthy water in their home. But now we want to synergize. We want people to support. We want a kind of synergy that we can make this available through women organizations, government agencies, and everybody that is present, that is in this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you
My name
very
is Toyin
much.
Oluoko.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Sorry, just a quick one. I just want to share a particular funding that has been underutilized for a while.
Okay.
It is the ambassadors' small grants. I'm sure for community-based organization. The speaker mentioned community-based organization. So grouping yourselves into community-based organizations, I think a lot of embassies, US, Canadian, Italian, German, they all have ambassadors' small grants. They call them small grants, but they're not really small, up to 15 million, 20 million. Yeah. And you could just go to Ijora Badia and build toilet facilities for low-income earners there. So just to share that. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Please, we have...
Okay, thank you so much, panelists and the moderator. Very interesting discussion. Now that we have the policy in place, how do we put all this into action? I think that is the next step that we all need to be looking at, particularly looking at the outcome that we all expect. How do we make sure that our outcomes are gender responsive in terms of in each of the agencies now that have been established? Who is going to be playing that role to ensure that that person continually wears that gender glasses and begin to look at the issues, how they are happening? In terms of financing, for instance, how do we make sure that financing is also gender responsive? Very soon, I'm sure that we'll be taking the budget to the House. How do we make sure that all those things are contained there? Also, in terms of gender budgeting, how do we make sure that each of the agencies now will be inclusive, gender responsive, and equal in their decision-making processes? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think this is an opportunity. We have one desperately, maybe so that you can just add up to the response.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Femi Akisunola. I'm team lead for Segment South Africa. And I think I'm more interested in doing, because like the governor was saying yesterday, we have this culture of talking in Nigeria. And when we were brought up by our team lead, one of the things we agreed on, even, was that myself and some of my team members, that this Friday, for example, we are going to Palace School in Lagos State, to go and carry out this sensitization on issues like this, talk to the girls. We're even thinking of empowering at least one or two girls with scholarship there. So I could imagine if many of us too, after all of these talks, we're just talking again, thinking of already trying to see how we can walk up to some of our mommies and daddies there, for partnership, because we need this thing. If we are not being proactive with it, if we're not really going out there. I love what mommy said the other time, talking about the clean campaign for Lagos, And for me and my team, I think we'll be ready to work with you on that, ma, if you would allow us. So I think we need to do a lot of work, serious work after this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our panelists, please respond to anyone that you can, but Madam have already raised her hand first, so let her respond, then it comes this way. But please, let's be brief for want of time. Thank you.
So the first question is, in line with what you have also said, yesterday, Mr. Governor made a comment. It was not just a question of let's stop talking and start doing, but it was also something he said at the end in line with, the state does receive a lot of proposals, tons of proposals every day, but when it now comes to, oh yeah, let's get the work done, a lot of people fall back. We will continue to be open to partnerships, SDG 17, but it will be done in line with best practices. It will be done in line with policy. You must show capacity to be able to carry out whatever it is that you're claiming you can do. That's in the first instance. Sir, For us, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget is like the central repository of the guidelines as to budgets, as to different policies. So if it says that we must have a certain percentage of women before this can be implemented, it will be one of the guidelines for them as well to share with everybody. Everybody goes to them for the vote of charge. And if one of the conditions is that you must have gender adequately represented there, then it will be one of the policies for them to be able to sign off and say, okay, you can then spend. So that's something that is relatively straightforward to implement, and it will be one of the feedback, my ESMA, that maybe at the end of this conference will be one of the feedback that they will get to make sure that everybody that is under the Lagos State umbrella is on that line. So it will be one of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I will talk on the policy that you mentioned. Truly, the Lagos Watch policy has been launched and passed. And in the policy, we have about 35% of women to be enrolled into the leadership position and also in the management of water sanitation facilities. I will say that before the WASH policy was even launched, Mr. Governor has started implementing this policy. The percent, as SA rightly said the other time, the percentage of women in the permanent secretary, they are about 40%, in 50%. The ESCO is about 35%. And in the WASH policy, it was rightly put there that about 35% on page 56 to 57, that says that we have to have 35% of women in WASH leadership roles and in decision making. So I believe he has started it by Mrs. Adepoju is a woman, she's in WASH sector, I'm a woman, I'm in WASH sector. He rightly appointed me as the Executive Director, Operations, Lagos Water Corporation, immediately after that. And so I believe he has been doing it, and it will continue, and it will continue to get better. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the young people will call us babes. I've been misunderstood. That's what my son told me. So I have to learn from these people. Otherwise, they say you are not woke anymore. Just two things I want us to emphasize. That we ensure that there's better coordination between the MDAs. I would have loved to see the Commissioner for Women Affairs say some stuff here, primarily. Better coordination between the MDAs, the state and the local government. For me, it appears that the state is doing a lot more than they need to do. A lot of work can be devolved to the local government so that the ambassador's grant, that is where it will be embedded. The young man who wants to do a clean campaign, it is the chairman of the local government structure that they will engage. We all want to go back to our local government. We all live in local government, even President, BAT. We all have a local government. So let's all begin to inject more capacity, more funding, more collaboration between the actors at that local government level. And the last thing, I want to urge all of us to patronize made in Nigeria goods, products. You know, hire people within 2 kilometers of where you live. That gives you a bit more security. Because you want people to pay for this water. We have to invest in them to be able to make money to pay for the water. So it's a win-win situation. So please, buy made in Nigeria goods. Every time you wear Gucci, somebody is having job in Italy. If you buy Adidas, somebody is having money in the United States. Begin to patronize your own goods and products. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to address Mr. Abbas's question, especially with respect to the policy. Not only was the policy approved, the policy implementation plan has also been approved by His Excellency. And the beauty of that is the fact that inside the policy implementation plan, there are some specific lines of activities, on planning, on regulation, and on service delivery. And I'm encouraging the Ministry of Environment, where the policy is warehoused, to start looking at those activities and let us start implementing it. In fact, I've even given a kind of jara, in the sense that if the policy had been approved, their normal budgetary lines should go. Then the expenditure on the implementation plan, he can also present it to His Excellency, and it will be, it will go through. So that gives an extra. I've made that point, and I've been talking to the Honorable Commissioner about it. So it's not just the same usual budgetary things. Since the implementation plan has been approved for WASH, there should be an expenditure on that implementation plan. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just to add on, in Lagos, as everybody has mentioned, we're not folding our arms. 2 weeks ago, we released the Lagos State Climate Adaptation and Resilience Plan. One of the things that document actually put forward was, how do we fund a number of initiatives? And just like the session before us talking about blended finance and de-risking that, as we did assessments to actually say, what are the estimated costs for some projects, as in some of which are in the water, sanitation, and hygiene space. Some of them we've gone forward to actually conduct pre-feasibility studies. Some we've done business case for. I can mention at least 2. We've done for waste to energy, and we've done for wastewater, where we've actually done a business case for it. So we are beginning to think about de-risking and how we can bring on board blended finance into that space. So we are serious about action and not just talk. So when Mr. Governor was saying yesterday that no more talk, let's see what can happen in the next 12 to 18 months, is because the process has already begun. That is why he could confidently say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I can say that this plenary is actually an active one, right? Because it seems like we're on our toes and we're on the move. But most importantly is that by the time we converge here next year, I want to believe, Madam ES, that the gender discourse is not going to end with this 5.1. We're going to do more, because now we are seeing more of finance there. It means that there's more opening through the gender perspective for water, sanitation, and hygiene if we want to access financing. So we don't take that for granted. It's a gold mine for us in the water sector. So I think we need to have more in-depth discussion on further areas of collaboration and implementation. I think the communique of this very meeting should be forwarded to the Commissioner of Women Affairs, like our brother said. This gender perspective or gender responsive financing in all projects, not only in water and sanitation. It could be something that she would take it and the bill will be passed, and yes, and stuff, yes, in every aspect. So I think we've done a very good work. Thank you very much on that. Please, a big round of applause for our panelists. Where is a photographer, please? Can we, Madam Speaker, please, can you come up so that we'll have a group photograph? Yes, thank you. Okay, the ES has stepped out, so we can.
Only one man. Gender.